quorum tonight, so we will once again, for the second time in a row, Ms. Board Member Patrica, we'll be unable to actually have an official meeting tonight. However, under the direction of our senior staff in the district and Board Member Patrica, staff will take thorough notes and provide a summary and synopsis. So in my opinion, my personal opinion, not the official district opinion, you will be just as effective tonight by providing your comments and feedback, and you'll have even greater impact because there's fewer of you to give comments, so each of your comments will have more weight. So I encourage you to pay attention to the presentation and still participate in the meeting and provide your feedback, even though this is a non-official meeting, or gathering rather, of the District Advisory Council. So with that said, we will not be able to vote on minutes from the previous 2 meetings now because we don't have a quorum. And there's no need to actually take public input, but I'm curious, are there anybody that's not a member of DAC that would like to give comments to people that are members of DAC about our agenda items tonight, which is on transportation? Seeing none, we will move on to a update from the wonderful Ms. Patrica.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Oh, you guys seem as tired as I am. Okay, I've got some updates for you. Everybody take your right hand, reach behind your back, pat yourself on the back. Because Senate Bill 86, the parts of it that we were concerned about for our children are not going to happen. Yes, yay, yay. That's a big deal. And anyone in here who got engaged in that process, it is because of your influence on the legislature that Bright Futures dollars were not taken away from our kids. There are some technical things associated with that live on, but it's not going to have a tremendous negative impact on our kids. I was not only impressed with your willingness to engage, but I mean, I had high school principals calling me, begging me to help their kids because they love their kids and they want their kids' work to result in those Bright Future scholarships that were promised to them. So I have to tell you that the governor, for him, all of those changes in Senate Bill 86, they were a non-starter. He would not have committed to it. And your House of Representatives also stood really strong on that issue. So yay on that. You can also pat yourselves on the back one more time for Executive Order 1, EO1, correct? Where the Department of Education has issued an executive order saying that children will be held harmless, students will be held harmless for those end of course exams this year. So if a graduating senior doesn't have a passing score on an exam, that is not going to be the reason why that student doesn't graduate. The same is true for third graders who are matriculating up to fourth grade. That test is not going to be held against them. And while teachers, the scores for teachers were not specifically addressed in that executive order, Lee County staff has committed to making sure that those scores are not used to penalize teachers in any way, shape, or form this year. We good with that? All right, and then the final piece of update I'd like to give you is, y'all know we're getting a new superintendent, right? Yes? I want to talk a little bit about the accomplishments of the current superintendent, Dr. Adkins. Every single year he's been in that seat, we have had the highest graduation rate ever in the history of Lee County. Ever in the history of Lee County. That's huge. We have seen achievement gaps shrink year after year after year under his leadership. I'm sure I've told you this before. This is one of the things I'm really most proud of. We have no failing schools in Lee County. None. Zero. So they're called DA schools. They are schools that are rated or graded a D or an F by the state of Florida. Lee County, which is the 9th largest school district in the state, has none. If you look at Hillsborough, they have 27. Look just to our south, just to our north, districts that are much smaller than ours, they have DA schools. We have none. So there is no such thing as a failing school in Lee County. There's no school you can choose in Lee County where your child will not get a high-quality education. I'm incredibly proud of that. And again, Dr. Adkins' leadership has gotten us there. Yep, thank you. And the last thing I'll say about Dr. Atkins is the legacy he is leaving behind with the half-penny sales tax. You know, this community got behind him. They trusted him to pass a tax. The community essentially taxed themselves and trusted that under his leadership, the revenue from that tax would be used appropriately. We have an independent sales surtax oversight committee that meets quarterly and determines whether the money has been spent appropriately and in accordance with the promises we made to the taxpayers. And quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter, they approve the expenditures. So we're doing a good job there. Essentially, what we have here right now is like a really neat present with a big bow on top. And we're going to take that present and we're going to hand it off to the successor superintendent, because this district is healthy and this district is strong. And as sad as we are to see Dr. Atkins go, this process of finding a new superintendent can be a lot of fun for a community. So I invite you to get engaged in the process. I invite you to reach out to your board members. When we put committees together to vet candidates, I invite you to get involved in that. This really can be an exciting time for a community, making sure that we choose the candidate that's going to continue to lead the district forward. Do you have any questions for me? Excellent. Have a good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. So I also want to give everybody here tonight, before we turn it over to our folks from transportation, an update. We have at the moment 27 people that are attending our meeting online, and there are 49 of us here. We need 51. We are literally 2 people short. But thank you everyone again for coming out. Like I said, we're going to continue forward with the information. If by any chance we notice anybody straggling in, we'll try to keep track, because we could actually convene. We're literally 2 people short. So I'll just keep you updated if anything changes throughout the course of the evening. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lloyd. Is Mr. Savage here with you as well? We just have the illustrious Mr. Lloyd, who is more than capable of handling all of this.
Good evening. You're always too kind, Scott. I'm going to move over here a little bit. I have 3 individuals in the back before we start the quick PowerPoint. Manny LaFelice, he's the Senior Administrator of the South Zone. I've got Mr. Purdue, Richard Purdue, he's out in the West Zone. And Jared McKinney, and he's out in the East Zone. And as unfortunate as it is that we don't have the 51 needed, I think you have 3 people there that are happy to watch me do this. So, now I've been doing this 3 or 4 years now. And this was the first year that actually the board wanted to see the presentation, actually 2 weeks ago. So I've actually shared this with your board, and they had some great points. Because we come and we change the numbers year to year to keep you updated on our numbers, number of kids, number of routes. And there's a lot of information that gets taken in, but really, and this is what the board was saying, is you're more interested in processes. How do things work? How are they supposed to work? And questions. So we still have the data up here. I'm going to go through the first couple slides very quickly. If anybody wants it, you can email me. I'll send this to you. It really doesn't bother us. But as far as transportation goes, everything really is stated in 7.01. So in the school board policy, the board policies for transportation, 7.01 is really only 3 sentences. I put the main one there. Primary purpose of the transportation program is to provide safe and efficient services at the lowest possible cost. For most parents in here, you want to become familiar with 7.02, and that will answer 99% of the questions that actually come our way. And we're not going to go over that as much, but we will refer back to it quite a bit. So just a quick department overview. Our employees, we are down a little bit. We have just over 1,000. We've been up over 1,200 in previous years, but COVID has It's been tough on our employees. So we have 4 bus compounds. I introduced 3 individuals. 6 Mile is the south. If you're familiar with the South Zone, it's right there on 6 Mile Cypress, right at Summerlin and Gladiolus. We're across from the Sheriff's Department, just east of the Walmart there. The west compound is out there right behind Mariner Middle and Mariner High School. We actually share the property. So if you've been past the front of Mariner, we're directly behind the schools there. The 2 other compounds, Buckingham and Leonard, they are in the east zone. So we actually have 4 bus compounds, but 3 zones. The office staff, and this is total for the department, that's dispatchers, routers, supervisors. We have video clerks, trip specialists, secretaries. We have 58 garage staff, and we are short. We have positions, if you know anybody. We absolutely always need mechanics, but as shop supervisors and mechanics, we have 56 currently. Regular bus operators, 656. We're budgeted for 749. So if you take a look at the number of bus operators we have, obviously it's quite a bit short of what we've been budgeted. Of that 656 bus operators, we just hired 34 substitutes and moved them to regular. So that number was actually 620 at the end of February. So we did just move some substitutes over. The bus attendants, 162. Substitute bus operators, 65. Substitute bus attendants, 61. Those numbers there can be misleading. When we have sub-bus operators, they're substitutes. We can't expect them to come in or enforce that they come in. So you have some that only want to work the mornings, some that only want to work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So that number is not nearly as high. We are desperately, desperately, desperately seeking drivers. And you're going to see that probably last Thursday, School Messenger. Does anybody get School Messengers? Probably had something about the need for drivers if you're interested. You will be getting those every other Tuesday or every other Thursday. You'll be getting those. So we're going to get those out. We've been trying to get drivers in. Obviously, the concern is for next August. So if you know anybody who needs a job, please get the word out there. We train them. We actually have a CDL class. We have trainers. They go through our classroom. Then they can do the walkthrough. They get on the roads. We make sure to train them so they have a CDL license that they can drive for us. Daily miles traveled, 61,000. It's a few thousand short. You're going to see here annual miles, that's 11,000 or 11 million. Those are route miles. That does not include all the extracurricular activities, which this year obviously have been reduced drastically. Doesn't take into account the field trips, the sporting events that are going. There's the fuel, almost 11,000 gallons per day, just under 2 million for the year, and probably the most interesting, or the ones that you guys would want to hear about, is the average length of the route. So of all the routes that we have, the average route is 57.2 minutes. 66,000 students are eligible. Today we have 690 routes. Since I've been in transportation over the last 7 years, we've been as high as 783. So we have been forced actually to reduce the number of routes, because every time we can reduce a route, I pick up a driver. So it's almost out of necessity that we've had to cut the routes like we've done. This year, obviously, we don't have as many riders, which has made it possible. Number of bus routes, 2,894. Stop locations, over 6,000. 33,000 stops daily. So obviously we're using the same routes or the same stops more than once. And then the last one, route changes, approximately 20,000. And that has to do with the parent requests that come in. We have a mobility right here with our students that forces us to change routes pretty frequently. This year it's not as large as it has been in the past, simply because we don't have the ridership we've done in the years past. So here's where this is going to slow down a little bit, because I think this, after talking to your board, is really what you guys seem to be interested in. So how do we establish our stops? It's a big one with the parents. Our routing system takes a look of all the students in a particular area that are assigned to a school. So it takes a look at this area, and then it picks out a location, a bus stop, that is equitable to all students. So we don't want one student walking a mile and the other student only walking 3 blocks. So it takes a look at all of the eligible riders, and it picks out the location that is most equitable to everybody. But that's step one. Then we go to that location to see if it is a safe location. So our safety supervisors will go out. They have a checklist, and I'm going to show you what that checklist looks like. So when they get out there, they might take a look at it and say, you know, this isn't the best location. If I move it down 1 block, the kids have a larger area to stand in. There might be a light, there might be a sidewalk. There might be something there that our system won't show us. That's why we check each route. So, although it picks the location, we do change depending on the safety of the stop itself. So this is from the DOE, Department of Education, Basic School Bus Curriculum. There must be 200 feet of uninterrupted visibility between the front and the rear of the bus and other motorists. And you guys can see there, stop should be located 200 feet from an intersection, 50 feet from the corner before entering an intersection. We don't want to stop to where our back of the bus is blocking an intersection. So we're actually going through the intersection, or we'll stop before, at least 50 feet before. They must be at least 200 feet apart. It is recommended that there are no more than 4 stops per mile. Students should have room to wait safely off the roadway. The safest place for students to wait may be on the side of the roadway opposite of the pickup point. So, I'm going to use McGregor. There are locations on McGregor where we don't want the kids crossing without us there. So we train our drivers. They actually put out the stop arms. They make sure traffic is stopped in both directions. Then they'll point at the students and direct them to cross in front of the bus. So instead of have the kids coming across on their own, there are times where we stop the traffic and then we bring them across. Now, we do not bring kids across a divided roadway. It's just something, it's unsafe for the kids, it's not recommended, so we won't do that. So there are places on McGregor, and that's why I used it, that we won't stop and have kids cross. We'll actually go up, pick up door side, turn the bus around, and as we come back, pick up door side on the other way. So it really does depend on where you live on the roads as far as do you have that median in the middle. Can be painted, can be grass, can be raised, but we don't cross the kids at any location like that. Establish or change stops only with supervisor's permission, and that comes from the drivers. And we actually have a dry run in the summer. So they get paid to go out, they drive the routes, they come back and say, hey, Mr. Lloyd, we have construction at this location. We can't have the kids there. And things do come up every year. Every year, construction. We've called Lee County to have them trim trees back. The driver will say, hey, I pull up, I can't see down the road. So we make sure that all these stops are safe starting the first day of school. And then it's definitely from the state, we don't do any stops in a turning lane or a merging lane coming in and out of an intersection. So here is the Lee County School District School Bus Stop Review Form. So our safety people actually take this out with them when they're looking at a new stop. And they're just yes or no. We formatted it so it would all be on one page. Are there sidewalks at the bus stop? That is for our knowledge. There will not be sidewalks at every bus stop, as we all know. Unfortunately, we do not have the sidewalks that the community actually needs, and we are all for them. But they're not all going to be at our bus stops. That's just for us to have on hand. Is the stop 1/2 mile from other stops? You're going to see here that's part of school board policy. Our stops here in the district have to be at least 1/2 mile apart. Is the stop at least 200 feet from railroad tracks? Surprisingly, West Zone doesn't have an issue unless their buses come over, but there are quite a few railroad tracks here in the South Zone. That would be Manny's problem. He gets this quite a few times, but we are in compliance. We don't have any that close. Is there clear visibility for at least 200 feet? Is the stop clear of trees, shrubs, signs, buildings, barriers, anything that would disrupt the visibility of the drivers? That all comes into play. 50 feet from an uncontrolled intersection. 200 feet from a controlled intersection. So what happens, what they don't want with that, they don't want us to stop at a red light, go through the red light, and immediately stop again. Because what you have is you have cars coming through, they see the green light, they're going to make the green light, and then we're right there stopped. So that's the big one there with the traffic light. You got to keep moving. If there is a running or a turning lane, is a stop before or after it, cannot be in the turning lane. So I know some parents want it right at the intersection, but if it's a turning lane, we're either going to have to bring it back a little or actually go past the intersection. But we cannot be in the turning lane. Stop location where any students must cross 3 or more lanes of traffic. Obviously, that gets back to the whole median. We don't want kids to cross any multiple lanes or anything like that. Is the student waiting area 5 feet from the roadway? Must be. It's got to be a safe distance off. Does the stop require driver to back up? If it does, we will not use it. Our drivers are not to back up. In fact, if they have kids on the bus, they can't back up unless they have an adult who can direct them back up. Which, do I have anybody from the West Zone? Any parents from the West Zone? When the West Zone was torn up 3 or 4 years ago, and there was construction everywhere, and it seemed to be the middle schoolers, but that was the fun time that they have, that they would get off the bus and they would turn the detour sign around, and they were sending our buses down roads which were closed, and then we couldn't turn buses around. So I know I was out there with Mr. Perdue, moving barriers, the sheriff's department. We've had neighbors that come out asking, why are you sitting here? And they're like, I can't move the bus until, so we've had neighbors come out and do that. So you won't see our buses backing up. If there is, there definitely is a problem somewhere there. And then, is the bus stop approved? Yes or no? We need to know, does it meet the state guideline, doesn't meet the district guidelines? So now we have it on file that yes, this is a safe stop. So, before I move on, are there any questions? Maybe, do you guys want to take questions now? Yes, sir. Absolutely, you need to let us know. on Zoom. If you out in the community see a stop that you feel is unsafe, or, and I'm going to tell you now, it's my driver not following what they should be doing. But yes, you absolutely need to call one of the zones saying, hey, I saw the bus. If you can get the bus number, that makes our job a lot easier, but we still have GPS. We can geofence and figure out, if you have the time, what bus you're referencing. But that's just letting us know, and then us addressing the situation with the driver. Yes, sir.
How long does it take to train someone who doesn't have a fresh license?
Okay, the question here is, how long does it take? It is an 8-day class, and that is a class within a portable, in a classroom. So they actually have book work to do. So they have to pass a written test. They have 4 tests they need to take from the motor vehicles department. We put them in an 8-day class, and that goes from just training them, our expectations, how it comes out. Then you have the walk around and the driving behind the wheel, and that is different for everybody. Some people can do the walk around in 2 days. They can get behind the wheel, especially if they've had a CDL in the past or have driven big trucks, dump trucks. They get behind the wheel, they're good to go in 3 days. We also have drivers that take 4 or 5 days to get through the walk-around training, and then probably take 3 or 4 weeks before they feel comfortable enough to go out and around. And unfortunately, we do have drivers that's a big bus, that's tough, and they don't make it. So they go through our class, but they never earn a CDL because they haven't passed. They're all CDL certified testers from the state. They just can't pass the driving test. So we do have people that fail that test too. Yes, sir. Absolutely, and we see it quite a bit. So the question was, one, do we have cameras, stop arm cameras? So the answer is no, we don't. More and more states, and I say more and more states, a few of the states are now implementing them. The state of Florida has not given the approval, and in the state of Florida, we can put them on, but our law enforcement agencies will not follow through with the ticket. So they have to witness it. They can't see it on a video, or they can't take a phone call from us saying, hey, we got this license number, it blew past our bus. So there is a state survey every year that we participate in. So for a week, our drivers actually get a form. They fill out any stop location that a car actually, what we say, blows past our stop arms. So no, we're not there yet, but the cameras are available. I would imagine once law enforcement, school districts all get onto the same page as far as, this could be a moneymaker. Some districts in Georgia talk about the money it brings in, the revenue, and it's split between the sheriff's office and the school districts. But we're not there yet. As far as educating, that's the most important thing we can do. I know on our website, we have that video, short video about what to do when a bus stops. We need to, as we come up to a stop, we actually put our amber lights on. Those are the yellow. I'm sure you guys are all in here are active parents. So I'm sure you guys are the ones that are stopping. You have the active yellow amber lights, then our stop arm goes out. And that's what's so important with our drivers in the first couple weeks of school with the kids, because they actually train the kids. They tell them, this is where I'm going to be stopping. I need you to wait in this location. You need to wait for me before we get eye contact, and I direct you over if they're crossing a street. If not, I need you 4 feet off the road as I pull up. Don't run or push. Everybody wants to be the first on the bus. which is amazing to me because they all have assigned seats by law. So they all go in, find their assigned seat, and go. But educating the staff, absolutely, or the community is extremely important. I know we had questions here. Yes, ma'am.
They go out to evaluate the stuff. Do they go out at the time that they would be living there?
Yes, we try to do that so we know. We actually do traffic counts. We actually do the vehicle counts. We just did, actually, I did one last Thursday. So yeah, we try to do that.
Could you repeat the question?
Question again is, when we look at these bus stops, do we go ahead and look at it during the time? And the answer is yes. And like I said, if you noticed, we have 6,800 stops and 33. So most of these stops have more than one school that uses it. So yeah, we will get out there early. We'll stay through the morning, and then you can see them in the afternoon too. So yeah, we try to do it when the buses are going to be there. Yes, ma'am. Yes, and that's one of the things, that's one of the incentives. We need drivers, it's $368, just to get your physical, your fingerprints, the rest of that. But here in the district, that's one of the incentives. So we'll actually pay you, all the fees, plus we will pay you during the training. So yes, everybody's getting paid. Yes, sir.
Hey, Mr. Lloyd, quick question. First of all, I know driving a bus is probably maybe the most difficult job in the district, because you're driving a monster machine in Florida traffic with your back to a bunch of students. Do you guys provide any training for the drivers, or is there plans for how to deal with management strategies for the students?
That is part of the classroom training that they get, part of the 8 days. But, as a former educator, we could always use more of the classroom management. And I always say, one of the toughest things for a new teacher is controlling a class of 18 or 22 kids in a class where you can face them. And now, we're expecting drivers who really, we're saying, hey, you need to get them here and home safely. But then we expect them to see everything behind them. And, you got 60 kids, like you said, with their back turned. It is an extremely, extremely tough job to do. But yes, we try to get them as much training as we can get as far as student management. Yes, sir. We have worked preliminary, but there's a lot of variables that actually go into that. And, I'm not sure we want to get into that. We could spend the next 2 hours on that. So the answer is yes, we're working on it, but no, there wouldn't be anything definitive at this point. Yep. Yes, ma'am. It is when they go regular. So they get hired as a substitute. Okay? And I guess I will repeat the question. I got to remember that one. Yes, repeat the question. So the question was, is the bus driver position a full-time position with benefits? We hire drivers as substitute drivers first, and then we move them to the regular position. So when they become regular, they actually get a little boost of pay, and they do get benefits. But when they first start at this point in time, they don't. But again, we're looking at anything that might be an incentive to help us get drivers. So that could be changing. But as of now, they're hired as a substitute and then moved to a regular. Yes, ma'am.
I was just curious, during the pandemic when we went virtual and we didn't need the buses to run, do you know how much money was saved? And if it was saved, how was it used?
How was it used? That would be a question for Dr. Desamore. And yes, I can tell you now, my team and I actually just sat through. So I know overtime has been cut by over $1 million, and I know the salaries, obviously, because we don't have nearly the drivers or the attendants that we've had. So yes, there have been savings. Unfortunately, it hasn't come to me. I would love to have some money to get my people some pay raises. But yes, there has been a significant savings this year. Yes. So the question here is, how long does it take to go from sub to regular? Right now, it'll be short. Right now, I would imagine anybody that we hire now, any of the subs we have now, and anybody we hire from now through the summer, I'll have positions for. They'll probably go regular starting the first day of school in August. Typically, I would say 6 months. But like I said, when we're short, we roll them in as fast as we can. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a great idea. And again, it's back to, as we talked about, educating the community, educating the parents, letting them know what the expectations are and where they need to sit. Now, I tell you, and these are the questions that we get. When there is a stop outside of a community, I usually hear it from the community, the HOA, because parents like to drive and wait in their car with their students. So then you have kids that are saying, or parents that are calling, or communities calling, saying, Mr. Lloyd, I've got 35 cars. I can't even get out of my development. And that becomes difficult because, again, you know, we're here to service the kids, to make sure they're safe. So we go through that. But yes, we definitely need to train our parents a little bit better. Any?
If I can jump in, if you don't mind. If I want to repeat that so we can capture that, I think that's a great suggestion, and I'm going to solicit if there's any others. It doesn't have to be this second or in your breakout sessions, but that's a really easy thing to generate a flyer that could be printed for open houses to be given to parents that may reduce phone calls to both you and the schools.
Oh, yeah.
with sort of some version of that information, you know, maybe reformat it a little bit for parents. But I think that's a great suggestion. I wanted to jump up to just to say that's the kind of thing we're trying to do. Those are the kind of suggestions we're trying to capture that they can do really easily. They don't have to go to Ms. Patrica and the board and get a vote or approval or anything like that. They can just go, wow, that's a great idea. That helps all of you guys, and it helps us. It makes everybody's life easier. So please, that's the kind of thing we're trying to get tonight. So I appreciate you making that suggestion. I want to make sure we got the idea captured to perhaps generate a flyer that could go out at open houses to inform parents of how stop decisions are made and what the criteria are for stops so that everybody can understand that better. Thank you. And I'm happy to help with the mic. I don't know, we're getting close to when we're going to do breakout sessions, but I think this is working well. I don't want us not to have breakout sessions, but we're having an informal gathering. There's not a lot of us. I'm happy to go around with the mic and keep taking questions. Looks like Ms. Patrica has a question.
It's not a question, it's a suggestion. So you talked about feedback you can give directly to staff. An official recommendation you could make to the board would be to add stop arm cameras to our legislative platform. That's not the kind of thing that would happen overnight. It would likely be a 2 or 3 year advocacy process, but it's something that if you as District Advisory Council got behind it, you could certainly support us with the legislature in getting it passed. So I want you to be thinking in those terms, not just, you know, the suggestions you can make to make the day-to-day easier for parents and kids, but the bigger ideas that we can advocate for on your behalf in Tallahassee. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We'll keep that on our list for when we have an actual meeting. Sorry, I couldn't resist the sarcasm. Does anybody else have a question they'd like to say? And I'll bring the mic to you. We can continue with Mr. Lloyd, and he does have some more slides to go through. Does anybody at our informal gathering have an objection to us just kind of staying together tonight and working through this? Is that okay with everybody? Seeing no objections, Mr. Lloyd, we're just going to keep you going and let people ask questions, and where appropriate, your zone people all look really happy too.
I was going to say, they're back there with both thumbs up,
You're not getting
clapping.
out of this. You're going to get some
cheering.
questions.
I just have a suggestion to add on to printing the school bus stop review form is also maybe an school bus etiquette form for parents, like don't line up in block streets, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and there are quite a few videos, actually, bus stop videos on the website. If you go under the safety and security, they have a bunch, when I say a bunch, 8 to 10 maybe. I also know at the elementary level, they spend in the first couple weeks, they do go over proper behavior at the bus stops and where to sit, not to play football, like I said, in the middle of the roads. Well, I get calls for that too, usually the middle school kids. But yes, I know the schools are very active in trying to educate the kids, and I know that the safety and security also has some videos up there as well. So I talked about 7.02, and this comes from the board, meeting with your executive board about some of the issues they've heard about. So our board policy states that the students may be required to travel up to 1.5 miles to their stop. It goes in there and it goes to describe, if you live in a gated community, we measure from where public right-of-way meets the private road. So it's not 2 miles back into Bellaterra. We actually look right at where Bellaterra meets Corkscrew, right where the public and private meet. So even though it says 1.5, I can tell you in transportation, we try not to have the little guys, elementary schools, we try not to have them walk more than a half an hour or half a mile. And then for the middle and the high school kids, we try not to have them go more than a mile. I would be hard pressed, and I'm sure there's a few cases. Most don't walk a mile, most of the older kids. We try to keep it at a half mile. It's at a half mile because that's what district policy says. We can't have them any closer. So we do space our stops half mile apart. Depending on where you live, we have some outliers. They might have to get a mile, a little bit more, but for the most part, they can walk up to 1.5. I will tell you a popular question that we have to answer start of every year. State law states that if you live within 2 miles of the school, you are not eligible for transportation. So state law is saying kids can walk 2 miles to school. I have a lot of parents that live 1.8 miles, and Mr. Lloyd, you only require the kids to walk 1.5 miles to the bus stops. It's not fair to the other kids that have to walk 1.8 to school. That walking to school is a state law. I have no authority in that one. I cannot provide any transportation unless there's hazardous walking. And we do have hazardous walking. We do transport kids within that 2 mile radius. But we answer that every year. And it's a tough one to answer. But for the most part, they can walk 1.5. Most do not. Like I said, I'd be hard pressed to see anybody close to that 1.5. Requesting bus stop changes. Now this was something, it was an eye-opener. You know, when you do transportation, you do it every day, you know the routines, the policies, procedures, but then you find out that not everybody is as well versed. So they wanted me to go over the requesting of bus stop changes. The first thing is to contact your student's school and request an initial change or bus stop request. Always comes up, but I'm calling you. Why do I have to go back to the school? You know, I got you on the phone, I'm telling you I need this stop here, we need to go here. It really is a safety issue because the first thing, I don't know who I'm talking to. And then I don't know if you are the parent that has custodial rights. Way back when, there was issues with the ex-wife saying, I want the kid closer to my house. Then the father would call, I want him here. We never knew who we were talking to. It came back. So you have to go through the schools. That is how we determine that, yes, this is the parent, this is who they say they are, this is the address that they live at, and they have parental custody. And I know some of the parents say, well, I feel like I'm getting sent back to the school sends me back to transportation. And that's something, that's a communication issue, and that's something that needs to be worked out with us. If that's truly happening on a regular basis, that falls on us, that falls on me and the principals. So we will definitely take care of that. So the school verifies all that information. They say this is good, this falls in the parameters of the district policies. I'm now going to send this to the router. So it gets sent to my routing department. My routers then take a look at it. They go through there. It might fit the policies, but there might be extenuating circumstances. So my routers might say, this is a new location. I need to send safety out there. So my safety would have to go back out there. They would have to check that stop, and we'd move on. Our routing department, after reviewing it, making sure it meets all state and federal district guidelines, we then get back in touch with the school and say, it has been denied, or yes, we're putting that stop in, but it's going to take at least 3 days. So some people say, okay, so you're going to put it in. Why is it taking 3 days? When we add stops to routes, obviously it changes the times for the other kids and the other parents. So for me to get a request and say, okay, I'm going to add these 3 stops, so starting tomorrow I'm going to pick up everybody else 20 minutes early. Well, it's too much. We want to give parents time to adjust for the change. Hey, there's changes coming. We've added some stops. Your new time is 6:15. But that gives the parents 3 days to make arrangements if need be. If there's no change, then we can do it right away. But like I said, as you adjust, as you delete stops, as you add stops, it's going to change the times. That's why if we do it, it's usually after that determination another 3 days till it takes effect. The school then is responsible for letting the parent know, and they actually give the student what we call a postcard. And on that postcard, it's just a form, a note printed out from our software program, and it gives the stop locations and the times. So the kids bring that home. So the parents have something tangible, something in their hands to let them know about the stop. Sounds good, but, okay, I know everything sounds good, policies, procedures, we've got them in place. So what are some of the hang-ups? Why doesn't it always work as planned? So as of last Friday, when I turned this in, there were 10,036 school requests going through. Quite a few are the first 2 or 3 weeks of school. So these requests are looked at, reviewed, and answered in the chronological order that they've received. So during those times, it might take a week or 2. We have thousands of them that we have to go through. And adding a stop is just not as easy as just putting it there. You have to change it on maps, you have to move things, you have to make sure we're still within the guidelines. It's got to be more than a half mile. Can we move them? So depending on the number of requests that we have in and the time of the year, obviously the beginning of the year is our toughest. Our routers work overtime for the first 4 weeks. They're in on Saturday mornings trying to get all these requests in, because obviously if the kids aren't getting to school, they're not getting taught. And that's really why we're here. We are a customer service. We support the schools. We're not a for-profit organization. That's not what school transportation does. It's not about making money, saving money, this and that. That's not our role. We are actually customer service. So we're there for the school, there for the parents, there for the students. So requests are processed, I said, in the order in which they are received, beginning of the school. This is probably important. So that's why we put this in there. We have to freeze our routes in mid-July. It is a union contractually. So we freeze them. We add kids, we delete kids, we get them all ready for the year, then we freeze our routes. All those requests that we get from mid-July through the first 2 weeks of school are going to be held. What happens during that time is I'll get a request for Estero High School. I need a stop. So I go ahead and I make that stop. It changes the routes. I put out a new route. 2 days later, I get another request for Estero. Now it goes to this route. Okay, I just changed that 2 days ago. So the letter we just sent or the information we put up onto the website is now wrong. So we do hold them. So we can make one big change, and it's the 9th day, I think, is when we try to get them out to take effect. But you'll have parents that say, look, I filled this out the last week of July, and I still don't have a bus stop. Well, yes, you do, but we haven't made it active yet because we're still collecting these requests from the parents. So we actually freeze our routes in mid-July. Under normal conditions, schools will receive notification of approval or denial within 3 working days. And remember, they're just getting a yes, we're working on it. Hey, we've received it. I'm sending safety out to go check it out. They will know within 3 days. As far as, the return policy, it's 48 hours. If you call and leave a message, if you email, you should get something back. Even if it's, yes, we've got your request, we are working in it, and we've even said, hey, this is probably going to be a few days longer than normal. We're already at 600. And each zone keeps track. We have a electronic form that we now use. The schools actually submit it electronically, so we have an accurate count. Then the ones we hear quite a bit, phone lines are busy. Phone lines are busy. And the answer is yes. Unfortunately, they are busy. We have 4 lines coming into the dispatch office. And it sounds like, oh, that's fine. But if you think about one bus that's late, one bus that's in an accident, I could have 40 parents calling in on those 4 lines. So everybody's trying to jockey in. Heaven forbid I have 2 buses or an accident, or I have a lockdown at a school that we have to now move kids over with. With the flood of calls coming in, yes, I know, because I'm on bus ramps, I'm out in the community, I try to get in, I can't get through sometimes. So this is something we're looking at on how to go there. We're trying to train our people to be a little bit quicker. I can tell you I came from the school. Phone calls at schools, they were easy. Is PTO tonight? 2nd grade, do they go to their field trip on Wednesday? The answers are usually quick. Are we Taco Tuesday? Yes, we are. Our phone conversations actually go a little bit longer. Hey, can you check on this? We have to radio the bus. We have to get back to it. So they're never real quick on that. Dr. Sabiro, I saw your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. From our friends on Zoom, they would like to know then kind of what you were talking about now. Will all buses be able to be tracked via Where's My Bus app?
Good question. How many people here have Where's the Bus app? Well, how many people say it's great and it works every day? Yeah, put your hand down. Okay, so here's Where's the Bus app. And this was something that we started 3 or 4 years ago. And it's definitely a tool for the parents. And in all honesty, it helps us. Because when parents can say, okay, I see the bus, I know when it's coming, I don't need to call. That's one less person I have on my busy phone lines. There is a problem, a flaw, whatever you want to call it, with the Where's the Bus app. I can make one-to-one changes. So if I have bus 1302 and it's on a sub bus today, I just put 1302 equals 2809. And that works well. We are so short drivers, though, we are covering one bus with 3 buses. So in the afternoon, I get there, bus A, I don't have a driver for. We just don't have it. So I take a look at those 15 routes, and I say the first 5 stops I need to put on this bus. The second 5 I need to put on this bus, and the third 5 I put on this bus. As soon as we do coverage like that, Where's the Bus app does not work for you. So usually the parents who say, oh, it's a great app, it works for me, we put it up on the iPad, it's on the kitchen counter, my kids love to race and see where it's go. I can tell that they have a driver, a regular driver, who comes to work every day, because you don't need to worry about it. The open routes, or the drivers that tend to like to take Fridays, paydays, and some of the other days off, those are the parents I hear from. And there's nothing I can say, you're right, sir. But when we cover, and we've had to desperately, when we start covering with multiple buses, that gets us in trouble. And I'm going to use this example. So I use 3 buses off the elementary school. I'm going to say Heights Elementary. I add 5 stops to them. So now I have 3 buses that's doing additional runs. What do you think their odds are of getting to the middle school on time? Because all our buses...
100%.
Yes, that's what I try to tell everybody. So if you look, and I got high school in the back here, high school principals love us. Never have a late bus. Oh, things are great. Well, they're the first tier. So if a bus isn't making it to school on time, I just start them 10 minutes early. I start them 15 minutes early. And we throw all our drivers at the first tier. So in the afternoon and the mornings, high school's fine. Very, very, very rarely do I hear from high school principals. I hear most from your middle schools. In your second, well, we have early and late elementary schools, but there are second tiers. So schools that are bundled with high school will do their high school run and then get to the late elementary school. The 8:25 drop-offs, the 3:10s in the afternoon. Our early elementary schools, they then have to do the 4th grade, or the 4th tier, which is my middle school. So if my first 2 tiers, the high school and the early elementary, if we're late, things get real difficult for the second tier schools. And yes, it is terrible taking those phone calls, and I hate going through there. But that's actually what happens. Now, I am extremely proud to say that our on-time delivery for last week was 95% in the morning. So your kids are getting to school on time. I hate to give them credit as they're dodging on everything tonight, but the 3 of them and their staffs, absolutely, 100%. You guys have done an outstanding job, 95%. Now, in the afternoon, I'm going to get to you, Andy. In the afternoon, it does dip. We're 82. And the number's a little deceiving because we talked about what happens when the first tier schools get off. Now, in the afternoon, and I'm not pointing fingers, it takes a little bit longer this year getting kids out of the school and onto the buses. COVID. So every school has different dismissal procedures. We're walking in different directions. We're coming out 1 grade level at a time. So what used to be a 10 or 15 minute dismissal, 25 or 30. And again, understandable, but that comes back to haunt us because now I'm 15 minutes late just getting off that ramp. I'm getting off that 210 Instead of at 2:20 or 2:25, I'm getting off at 2:35. It's nothing they can do, but ultimately, that's going to catch up, and it's those second-tier schools that are getting it. But Andy?
Well, I see a little glitch, not what you were talking about, but you got a student that's, say, going from middle school to a high school, getting the bus to middle school, of course. Whose responsibility is it, the parents, to say, hey, I got a kid going to this high school, and this is my bus stop? Or is it the high school's responsibility to say, hey, we got a new student, and he's on this? Anyway, otherwise, I've already run across a problem where this happened and was told, it'll be a week and a half before we get a bus for you. You know, a week and a half missed school.
Yeah. At the beginning of the year?
Who should be responsible for that, and we should make parents aware of it then, so they know who to call ahead of time.
Correct. So the question was, I'm going to get it as soon as it's over, Dr. Spire. I'm sure I'll get it. So the question is, when a student moves, graduates up from 5th grade to 6th grade, from 8th grade to 9th grade, how do we know what the stop is? Who is responsible? Is it the school's responsibility? Is it the parent's responsibility? Or is it transportation's responsibility to know that a bus stop is needed? Now, if your child rode the bus in 8th grade, we have him labeled as a bus rider. When he gets his choice and he goes to Riverdale High School, that comes into our database. So I know I have to route him. So the schools don't need to tell us. It's all in the database. So anybody who is eligible to ride a bus at Riverdale, we will know about it and we will route them. There is a little kicker here. If your child was in 8th grade and got dropped off, if he was marked as an NR, a non-rider, even though he goes to Riverdale, we would need to know that, okay, my child is going to ride this year. So that would be something that, yes, you would talk to the school would let us know. But if your child's eligible, but is on the NR list, non-rider, then no, we would not pick that up. Our program would not pick that up.
It was close to the school, for example,
Correct.
then he needs a bus.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So I have a question about the middle schools. I represent high school, but I also have a middle schooler, and I used to run the children's department at the library at the Northwest Regional, so we would experience this issue quite a bit several years ago. When you have a middle school bus and they're late, and they're not just a little late, but they're really late, what happens is because those middle schoolers are allowed to turn themselves into walkers, they leave campus and they have their parents pick them up. Now, the library is a safe place for kids. However, there are plenty of schools that aren't located next to a safe place. So what support is provided, and this probably isn't for you, but what support is provided to the schools to ensure that the students who are waiting for the bus either get picked up in the front by their parents or remain at the school for the bus?
Well, I can tell you that the kids are not supposed to do that. They are not supposed to just go and go. They might do that, but I can tell you that the principal is unaware of it. But definitely, there's not a principal that would approve of that. So what's happened in the past is the bus is late. We come out, hey, kids, your bus is going to be about 45 minutes late. Well, lo and behold, they all have phones. I'm not waiting here. So as they make the contact with the parents, some parents say, hey, I can't come get you. Tough luck. You're gonna have to wait for that bus. Other parents will say, okay, I'm heading down there. At that time, and I don't want to talk to all the schools, when I was principal, they were sent down to the office to wait in the front office. And the kids on the bus ramp, we always took into the gymnasium. We took them to the media center. If it was going to be any kind of 45 minutes, we got them a snack. You know, they had the time to do their homework going through there. But kids should never just decide, hey, I'm going to leave and do that. That I know would not happen. But Dr. Spire, I don't know if you want to answer.
I have another question on here. Thank you, and this is again from everybody that's on Zoom, and this one is about our Lee Home Connect students. So with Lee Home Connect transitioning out next year, will all Lee Home Connect students have a bus stop scheduled automatically, or should parents call now to request a bus stop for next year?
The hope is that they, and I will check on this because we've never done this. The hope is that they are going to still be in our system. And the reason why I've said this, and I'm not sure parents here know, is we've actually been taking Home Connect kids to and from school all year because it had to do with their testing. So some kids based on the EOC testing. So we've actually kept those kids in the system with stops still there so we could get those kids to their testing. So we have some kids that have only ridden the bus 4 times. Now, our bus stops, most of them have multiple kids there. So instead of having, say, 9 kids at a stop, we started the school, we might have had 3 kids at a stop. So those homeschool kids that needed to take a test, they just got on the stop. They were already on the list. We double-checked. We go from there. So I believe, yes, our homeschool kids will be taken care of. That's why you're skinny. I need to get that job.
So I have another question, because I also have an elementary school student. I got them in all levels, right? So sometimes the buses, they get split to another bus, but then the kids are transferred, like at some point during the school bus ride, to another bus. That's happened before, but does it happen to elementary school, or do you not do it?
Transfers are few and far between, and I don't want to say it hasn't. I don't know about them, but yes, I mean, in years past, there's been transfers, but not on a regular basis. It definitely would be few and far between.
When we get those transfer notices or the bus transfer notices, is there any way that a parent can change the pickup? Again, this might be more administrative, the pickup option. So like, if I know that my child's ride is going to be a lot longer and that might be uncomfortable for them, and I know it'll cause issues not just for her, but maybe also your staff, which I wouldn't want to do. Right now, I can't do that. I can't call and say, hi, it's Amy. I want, my daughter to go into parent pickup instead of the bus. They won't do that, and I understand it's a safety issue. But what sort of process can we have in place for parents to make that switch in the event that the bus is changed? Not just for an everyday thing, but because the route has changed.
And that would be really a school-based decision. So what you're asking is, if 5 stops have been added and now my student's not going to get home for an hour and a half, can I go? Now I would say you would get a hint if you got the call, the school messenger that says, hey, bus 1302 is running a half hour late and will be split onto this bus and this bus. Obviously, when you get that notice, at that time you could, but the school's not going to, and maybe for late buses. So I don't know. That would definitely be one for your school principals and the schools. No problem. All right. Well, it's almost over, guys, I promise. They wanted me to talk about school bus, the benches. And this is going to be my easiest slide. That's why I put it last. Our only role in the school buses was that we were asked to give the agencies, Cape Coral City, Village of Estero, Lehigh Acres, the appropriate agencies, the ones that asked, we gave them a list of our stops and the frequencies. So Cape Coral, they're the ones that was in the paper. They had a project through the Kiwanis, actually through, I think it was a joint effort, to be honest, the Rotary and the Kiwanis. But I don't want to be quoted on that. But anyway, so they came through. We gave them the stops. We gave them the frequency. Everything else was handled outside the school district. And there was a couple reasons for that. You start talking about 10 foot of easement. We don't have that. You talking about the cost, the weathering. I can tell you now where it was a concerted effort in the city of Cape Coral. There they had a project and a plan. It was well thought out. Out in some of the other communities, you had very, very well-intentioned individuals that wanted to provide benches. So they went out, they put benches out there. I hate to say this, but here's the reality. You had some homeowners didn't want the idea of Gatorade bottles in there, kids hanging out on their yard, so they set their sprinklers to go off every morning at 5 o'clock. You also had those that they would lock them up against the tree or the post. That lock would get cut. They were nice enough to pull the bench and table out into the middle of the intersection, take a picture, and send it to me. But we never had anything to do with the benches one way or the other. And I can tell you now, there were some issues with the hurricane threat that we just recently had about who's responsible for going to get those. Now, after a couple years, with the rain, they haven't been finished. Now we've got splinters, we've got other things going on. So I can tell you, Cape Coral, they did things right. They really did. They put concrete slabs, they bolted them in. They did a much more thought out, well-planned project there. But like I said, this one's easy for us.
Mr. Lloyd, was your department involved in a survey related to that?
Okay, there was a survey. Cape asked us to do a survey. So our drivers out in the Cape actually had parents do a survey for all those kids. How often, what grade levels. I can tell you, to be honest, in the early morning, those benches are wet. So the high school kids are not sitting on the benches. I can tell you, if you get to the middle school kids, you can go to a stop location. Doesn't matter where that location is, on what street corner. If you go out there for middle school, all you have to do is find the shade. Because at 9:15 and 9:30, they don't like standing in the sun. So what they do is they find the tree, they find the side of the house, they find anything they can to stand in the shade. They see the bus coming, and then they come out. So we did pool surveys. We actually gave them to Kate. Kate went ahead and did a presentation. And actually, as we're talking about it, 2 o'clock on Friday, I have a meeting with Cape. So does Mr. Perdue. I'm going to make him talk at that one. So he can speak up on that one. So yes, we did help with the survey as well.
Mr. Lloyd, we have a question from our Zoom team, and I remember they're on a little bit of a delay. Yeah, they're about a 2-minute delay between what you're saying and what they see. So this is really going back to that previous content, but this one is more of a comment to your team, and you can respond if you'd like or just hear their comment. Which just said, good question about my first grader who has been on a bus at times for over 2 hours, sometimes without notifications, and it's typically because of a substitute driver. So they wanted to share that with you.
A substitute driver actually usually costs me about 15 or 20 minutes. And the reason is anyone, if you look at 700 routes, 690 routes, just even if you split them up, 225. So a bus driver could come in, a sub-bus driver, he comes in the morning, and he gets, hey, here's 1302. I need you to drive, and I need you to do an Estero and a Bonita Elementary. I might not know Estero, I might not know Bonita Elementary, and it's tough to do that. So you do that, you feel good, all right. Now I come back in the afternoon, but that driver 1302, he's there in the afternoon. So now I get asked to do 1706. And this has to do with a Franklin Park that then goes to Fort Myers Middle. So our sub-drivers, until they get to know the South Zone, they're asking to go all over the place. And I got to tell you, I've been in Lee County now 26, 27 years. There are places out in Lehigh, I got to tell you, even I have to get the old GPS out and say, okay, where am I going on this place? So it is difficult. So yes, sub-drivers often get lost. That'll most definitely hurt the time coming home. We've had cases where we've just said, pull over, we'll send a veteran driver they'll jump on your bus and get those kids home. And actually, we had an issue with that out at Pine Island the other day. So, yes, subs make it real difficult.
I have a question.
Two here, and then we'll come back over there.
Does snowbirds, spring break, all of those things affect the traffic and the bus times? And do you see better times, say, starting around right now?
Oh, great. If you saw Manny back there, he's giving the thumbs up. Great question, great question. I am usually a huge sports fan, doesn't matter what it is, just like sports. Can't stand spring training, can't stand it. They kill us. So they play their games early. They play the 10 o'clock games. So, of course, they're getting off at 1 o'clock, where now I'm trying to get 240 buses just half a mile down from the Twins complex. And then we've got the Red Sox out there. So spring training, snowbird season, absolutely, that kills us. Mr. Perdue, 2 years ago, when the Cape, we talked about it being torn up with all the construction there, that was costing us about 15 or 20 minutes with all the construction sites there. But the amazing thing is, in both those cases, most parents are actually very forgiving. They understand because they're seeing the traffic. When they try to go to Publix, when they go to pick up their kids from the school, they actually see that and understand that, yes, it definitely adds time. Here in the South Zone, we usually try to get them out 15 minutes earlier than normal, just to try to get them to the schools on time in the afternoon. So.
Hi, I understand that sometimes at the last minute there's bus changes. Is there any way to like standardize or get a plan in place for when there is a bus change, even if it's last minute, for you guys to have just, no matter what school or what level, this is something coming from an elementary school experience, where if there is a bus change, some of the drivers, I'm assuming it's the drivers, are writing the change, like the bus number, the original bus number on the doors. Mm-hmm. And some of them have like a, kind of like a flip numbered, I don't know what it's called.
Right by the stairs, yep, flip chart.
That has another number other than what's printed on the bus. Mm-hmm. But sometimes because you're coming from, like you said, a high school, now you're picking up elementary school, it gets a little confusing when you have like a different school's bus change number written, and the kids are trying, elementary schoolers are trying to get on a bus, and they don't understand that what they see written is not number for that particular school.
Yeah. Now, we train our drivers, when they pull up, they always, especially the subs or somebody who's covering a route, that's what they ask those kids. Are you, are you going to Mariner Middle School? Are you going to Heights Elementary? To give the kids, hey, because if there's an accident, and there's so many things, I can tell you the policies and procedures, and it sounds great. That's the whole thing, sounds good, but you got to remember, we have pre-K kids on these buses. We have kindergarten and first grade students that in our district, it's not state mandated, but in our district, if a parent wants to have that child met at the bus stop, they fill out a form and says, I don't want you to let my student off unless I'm there. But it comes back to, we show up at the stop, the driver calls in, little Johnny's mom is not here. So now we're stuck. I've got 10 minutes to be at my next school. I still have this child on my bus. What do you want me to do? So now dispatch, we're all trying to call, trying to get in touch with parents. Parents have flat tires. Parents have batteries that don't work after a day of work. Parents are in, bumper to bumper accidents coming through. Meetings run late. Kids get sick. This kid gets sick. They go through there. So there's so many different things that can go wrong in a day. Even if everything's planned out, all my drivers are there, everything's covered, there will be something that we have to put out a fire for. So the end of the day, the changes, we go through the schools. There should be a school messenger. Anything after 20 minutes, you should be getting a call, especially in the afternoon, about the changes being spoken about. We had the question up here about what we can do, but I think that's a perfect thing. As Scott was saying, that's something we need to look at. That's something that we need to find a solution or something that works for all of us. The happier you guys are, the happier I am. I can tell you my life's a lot easier when we have the drivers and the kids are getting to and from school on time.
I'd just like to go back to the question that came from Zoom on the long bus rides and the correlation to possible sub-bus drivers. And since we can't make, just a suggestion, since we can't make any formal recommendations here, is that maybe at the beginning of the year when the bus drivers are practicing their routes, that those sub-bus drivers go on ride-alongs in those specific zones to get to know those areas so that helps that problem a little bit more.
Yeah, in years past, the best case scenario is to have a sub driver, and for a week, that's all they do is just drive. Because you put them on with the better drivers, the more experienced drivers, they get to see how to do the student management, they get to see how to do the student stops, they get to know the areas. Unfortunately, we're so short. We're kind of, hey, I see you at 9, I'll put you on a bus at 10 type of deal. But there are things that we do as far as a driver like that. If I have a sub driver, I try to put them onto an ESE bus. An ESE bus has an adult, has an attendant on there. So if I have an attendant that knows the route, it's easier to say, hey, at the second light, we need to take a right. As you come up, we're going to have to take a left. So we try to make sure that they're on an ESE bus or somebody can help them. The other thing we can do to help them is a sub comes in, we try to put them on the same route. It's not always possible because obviously different people call off at different times, but you try to put them on the same route because every day they do it, they get a little bit quicker, they get more familiar with it, and we have some great drivers. We have drivers that between their runs will get in their personal car, they'll go pick up lunch, and they'll drive their route in the afternoon. They'll come and say, do you know what I'm driving this afternoon? I want to go run the route. And they do that in their cars. We've got a bunch of great drivers. They're dedicated professional drivers that really go out there. So, yeah. And I would say that is a suggestion. I would make suggestions during this meeting. I know that's what the board, when I met with your DAC board, that was the whole purpose of this, was to actually give us suggestions, which we've already started implementing these. So I was talking to Scott. So we've already updated our website. We thought everybody knows everything, which obviously we're not getting the message out like we should. So we've already made changes to the district website that should help the parents, which obviously comes back to helping me. Scheduling a meeting, a training between the schools and transportation department. We actually started this 2 years ago. So what happens is my 3 zone directors over there actually met with the principals, and we went through school board policy. We went through our processes. We went through our expectations of the schools, and at the same time, the schools gave us their expectations. Hey, we need changes by this time. We need this person contacted. We need the email sent here. I know the West Zone, they're techies. They're into running dialogue and group text, so changes are immediate. They send it there, and their APs on their bus ramps are looking. There might be 5 or 6 schools. It might not affect them. They scroll down. Oh, there you go, Cape High. All right, we have another change. So we're trying everything we can as far as the communication piece going in there. Last year we didn't meet because of COVID. The first year, it was very well received. I think it benefited us greatly as a district to get us all in the same room. So we know exactly expectations. The school board policies for transportation, 3.5 pages. It's not that much. So to take the time and actually read through this is a great thing, not only for us as a review, but for the schools as well. We talked about looking into a tracking system for the stop request and submissions. So basically, if I put in a request, I want to be able to track it. And what we've talked about, and I know Dr. Spiro was a part of that, Dr. Savage, it's like the pizza tracker, the Amazon Prime. Hey, I put this change in on August 20th. Where's it at now? Went to the school, was sent from the school. Now it's with the routing department in South Zone. So we can go back from there. So we're looking into different avenues that might help us with the tracking system. And then I put in there again, the best reference, 7.02. That'll be able to answer most of the questions that the parents have.
I have two questions.
Yes, ma'am.
And I apologize if they're silly or redundant, but one in regards to the routes, and with you said something about the substitute bus drivers that made me wonder, are they using, like, are we mapping in like a Google Maps or a GPS or whatnot for the routes? Are they doing that in real time, or is that not a thing?
No, when a substitute driver comes in and they get their route, they actually get a route sheet. And on that route sheet, it goes from stop to stop. And it's just 0.3 miles, take right onto this street, the next one goes through. So you'll see, they'll open up the door, say good morning, this or that, they look, they read, they get the directions, and they go from stop to stop to stop. So yeah, they have a route sheet with them.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't know if that had changed over the years. And then also in regards to the student behavior on the bus, is there another adult on the bus to help that mitigate student behavior? Is that not a position? Have we looked into it? Would it be useful?
Yes. So the answer is, by law, I need to put an attendant on every ESE bus. So every ESE bus that transports students will have an attendant on it. Some might have an additional attendant. If, and this is a real big if, and I probably shouldn't mention it in front of those three because we are extremely short on attendance as well, but if we do have additional attendants, we then do put them on gen ed buses. And these guys know, working with the principals, there are buses that are tougher with behavior than other buses. So if we have an attendant there and we have the ability to do so, we will put it in, but it's almost like a floating one. We always tell the principals, I can't give you one every day for the next 2 months. But if they're available and they're there, we will put them, we work them all, but we really haven't had that opportunity this year. So the gen ed buses do not have attendance on them.
So, question financially speaking, and not sure how it works, but I'll drop my child off at elementary, I'll drop my child off at middle, and I'll stop at the gas station to get myself a drink before I head to work. And when I stop at a gas station, it's like a bus driver party. Are those bus drivers being paid to sit at the gas station for an hour and a half, 2 hours in some cases, or are they required to return to the depot, get their own vehicle, go out and do that, and then come back? I mean, financially speaking, those buses being out isn't saving any money.
Correct. So, it's a couple different levels to this question. So your answer to Circle K is popular, McDonald's is popular. Are the drivers getting paid? Yes, they could be. So if I have a high school run and I drop off my kids at 6:45, I might not have to pick up my next stop until 7:45. So I have an hour in between. So we tell them, get close to that first location because we don't want you late. So they can't pull over on the side of a road because they block traffic. So there are absolutely times that when you see the buses at Publix, you see the buses, out of McDonald's parked there, they're between their two runs. Now that being said, can they stay after? Yeah, but we catch them with the GPS is what it is. And, I'm not going to lie and say that the drivers don't do that. Obviously, if you ever see drivers after 5 o'clock sitting somewhere, definitely give us a call. But I get this a lot. My first week in transportation years ago, I actually got 2 pictures. And they were a picture of the 2 school buses, and then 2 of my drivers actually sitting outside their buses on the causeway in beach chairs. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. So, I'm going to get them. So I drive out there, I wait for them, and they pull up, and they go, hey, Mr. Lloyd, how's it going? I said, what are you guys doing? They did a Sanibel. They run a Sanibel school, And then they have to go to Lexington, because during the season, that's the only school I can get those buses off Sanibel to. So they said, well, you told us to head back to the school and make sure we're not late. We're never late. And I kept saying, yeah, but the perception is killing me, guys, because people are saying we're paying people to sit on the beach during this time. But really, they were right there. They were between their runs. They were on the clock. I definitely moved their position. We took them over to the park, the Waxahachie by Lexington. It wasn't a good look. But there's a lot of times that legitimately our drivers will be sitting for a reason. You got to remember, we have activity buses from the high school going after 5 o'clock. We've got all the sporting events that they also need to be picked up after 5. So there will be times, yes, that these buses are sitting between their runs.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Our Zoom team has 2 questions for you. The first one is if there's a substitute bus, why cannot the replacement be the same number as their permanent bus? So, for example, their permanent bus number is 1, 2, 3, 4. Why can't the sub bus be 1, 2, 3, 4?
And in a perfect world, it should be. So Scott comes in, he calls off 6, he's bus 1, 2, 3, 4. The sub says, hey, what do you need me to do? And I said, Scott's out. Here's the route sheet for 1, 2, 3, 4. They go right to the slot. In a perfect world, they get on Scott's bus, 1, 2, 3, 4. It should be the same bus, just different driver. However, all of our buses need to be inspected every 30 days. So you're going to have buses that are pulled off, that are getting fixed, that have been in an accident, different size buses, 77 capacity, 65 capacity. So there could be reasons why there's other changes, but in a perfect world, it should be the same bus, different driver.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. The next one is about route sheets. The question is, are there any plans to upgrade from a route sheet to an in-cab GPS route system? Oh, thank you for that in the back.
Yes. Yes.
I'm just reading the questions, though, so thank you.
Yes.
Are you guys typing those in back there?
Yeah, I was going to say, who's
I'm sorry,
sending
that was
you?
from Manny LaFelice.
Yes, yes. Actually, yes, we have looked into that. They almost look like an iPad GPS system on there. You'll have 2 different perspectives on there. The first perspective is what you don't want is you don't want your drivers following a screen. Now it's a safety issue. Driving down the road, and what road is that? And now they're looking at a screen more than the road in front of them. So you'll see that. Now the other one is voice activated, just like Waze. You get that little boy band that sings to you like they do. You got all those good stuff. So yes, those are options we have looked into. We've actually priced those. They're not inexpensive, I can tell you that. So yeah, that could be an option, absolutely, in the future. That's it for me, unless we have more questions. Oh, we got one in the back, too.
I have grandchildren, divorced parents. So they live with mom not even a week, because dad's a firefighter on 24 off 48, blah, blah, blah. So the schedule is really weird. But they go to dad's house sometimes, and they're with mom sometimes. But I've always been told that they can only have one bus stop.
They can only have one seat in the afternoon. And yes, that's one that we deal with quite frequently. Whatever address is in the mainframe is the address that we will route them to. And again, it is a safety issue first and foremost, because then who's responsible? So what ends up happening is this week, that week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, Tuesday, Thursday next week. It's an issue with the schools, trying to remember. It's an issue for the student who says, oh, this is my bus, and they get on it, and now we're dropping kids off, and mom's not there, and it's across town, and now I've got a second grader over there. So the first issue with that is a safety issue. The second is we don't have seats available. I can't save 2 seats on one bus that's only getting used, half the time. So that becomes an issue as well. When there's no seats available, I can't say you can't ride the bus here because this person rides it every other Tuesday, or this one does it every Tuesday and Thursday. So district policy is you get one seat in the afternoon. Now, sometimes it's different. Kids will ride one bus in. They might take a bus to the Estero Rec Center in the afternoon. They go to an after-school program, but they only have one seat. So that's it, unfortunately.
Hi, my question's about eligibility. You mentioned the eligible, so let's say my student's a junior is going to start driving. How do you know if when they're dropped off, they drop off the list and they don't need a ride anymore? I would think that would be the parent's responsibility, because do you still go to that stop?
That would be great if the parents let us know, but unfortunately the parents don't always let us know. So what we do the first week is we have a route sheet, and it is the holy grail for my drivers, because one, it has directions. It also has information. It has the students' names, it has their address, it actually has their phone number, that they have it, and there's one with the birth date on it as well. So we have all this information. So after 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks, our drivers go through there, and as they're taking attendance, we call it zeroing out. So we might, for the first 5 days of school, travel all the way out to Corkscrew to the country farm out there. If that student is not riding, our driver crosses the name off, turns it into a supervisor or a router, and then we take that student off the list and make them a non-rider. So yes, we would take that stop off, so to speak. Well, if it goes 5 days without a student there, we make it inactive, meaning we won't go back until we hear that. Now, most of our drivers, to be honest, if they go 3 days and the student's not there, the first time they pull on the ramp, they'll get to the ramp personnel and say, hey, Johnny's not at a stop. Have you heard anything? Sometimes, oh yeah, they went on vacation for 2 weeks. Now, that being said, we still tell the driver, especially if it's in the middle of the route, you still have to go. Because if they don't go out to pick up Johnny and they go right to the next route, they're 20 minutes early. So, and we can't hold up. So yes, but we suspend it after 5, check into it. After 10 straight days, if we haven't heard anything, we actually delete that stop right off.
Do we have any more? Oh. Ma'am, you've used your quota up.
Yep, I know. Again, that would be a great suggestion for maybe principals to announce at the beginning of the school year, or like, hey, juniors, you're getting ready for whatever, SATs, but also you're getting ready to drive, or even the driver's ed classes. When the kids go through the driver's ed class and they know that they're going to be driving to school, maybe the instructor can say, hey, don't forget, if you're not going to be taking the bus anymore, to let us know. Because I didn't call, I'm sorry, and you guys let us know that we're off the list.
Okay. Well, in a few years ago, with the high school and the drivers, the high schools wouldn't let the kids drive for the first week. So our buses are all overloaded, and they want to make sure all the fines and the fees are paid, and everybody paid for the parking spot. So it was actually a week or two before they would let kids start driving, and next thing you know, we went from being overloaded and adding buses to bloop. Now we no longer have the need for those buses. So yeah, you'll have quite a few kids. We also get those phone calls too that his grade slipped. He now needs a new stop. So I get those phone calls too that he hasn't needed it, but now he does. He'll learn real quick. So yes.
Mr. Lloyd, do the schools inform you when the students engage in sort of longer term after school activities, like for example, theater? I know a student that's riding the bus in the morning, but for 3 weeks won't be riding the bus in the afternoon because they have every single day after school theater practice till 7 p.m. I know that the students' parents ask the school to tell transportation, but are you guys getting that kind of information from schools so that your bus drivers aren't surprised about the people not being on the bus? Curious.
Well, actually, and that's what the activity bus is for. And those going with the seasons, football seasons, the fall, everybody else, some schools have 4, 5 different activity buses to get the kids home. And you're right, as seasons go, as productions, drama productions, we're practicing every day. As soon as they have it, all of a sudden the activity bus goes down to another 9 kids. So that goes through. Most of that information, to be honest, goes from the school directly to the drivers.
Yeah. So I'm Christy Benall. I'm the principal at Gateway Elementary, so I work with buses all the time, and I have to do a shout out to Jared and his team at the East. They do a fabulous job. We have a very good and very close relationship with transportation. They call us, we call them, and we talk to the drivers. I have excellent drivers, and they are really working double time and triple time because COVID has caused quarantine issues. People have families that also have quarantine issues, and so they've had to do a lot of switching and substituting. And I'm telling you, today I had a bus that was the latest in months. It was about 30 minutes late. Other than that, they've been there, and the drivers are really good. They want to get the kids home. They help each other out. And thank you, Jared, for everything. You do a great job. I do have I've always had this question, and as we're looking to the future and with all the technology, as a principal, I think that it would be a great thing to look into. I don't know if it exists, but all of our kids have barcodes, even our little kindergartners, and they wear them with lanyards around their neck when they go to the cafeteria and they go to the media center. I always thought there should be some kind of scanning system on a bus, that when they get on the bus, they scan themselves in, and when they get off the bus, it scans them out. We use a paper system, but in the world of technology, maybe there's something like that that can be looked at down the road, or something that can be created by our awesome IT department, because I think that it would put a lot of people's peace of mind, and at least we would be able to track where kids are.
Actually, Chris, it's called a proximity card. They are out there. Believe it or not, we're probably a year or two away from the state mandating this, and it's actually easier than the slide. It is the same barcode that you talk about. It's actually a little chip in there and a reader right at the door. They can have it in their backpack, they can have it in their wallet, they can have it in their pocket. Kids just climb on up. It actually registers who's on what bus, when they got on. I can be in my office if a parent calls and said, hey, do you know what stop so-and-so got off of? I can pull it up and said, yep, he got on the bus at 3:22, he got off the bus at 4:15, here's the location. So yes, we're most definitely going to get there. I don't know how quickly, but that's where we're definitely heading that direction.
Mr. Lloyd, from the Zoom folks, this is about activity buses, as you were talking about earlier. This particular individual wanted to know why is it that activity buses only run Monday through Thursday when there are activities on Monday and Friday? I know the answer to that, but I thought it'd be good if you explained to everybody.
Yep. Those activity buses, again, we're here to support the schools. If they need them, we get them. I'm not sure, to be honest, if there's many activities going on Friday, but if we get the requisition, we'll have a bus there. The big issue with the activity buses are the times, because we have committed to getting the buses there by 5 o'clock. Sometimes they want to, hey, can you pick us up at 3:30? Can you pick us up at 4? We have a game down in Estero. We got a game up at Island Coast. Can you do that? The problem with that is I'm now making a decision to travel 12 baseball players up to a baseball game and leave 50 kids standing on a middle school ramp. So we do everything we can. Like I said, we throw everything at Tier 1, then Tier 2, then Tier 3. So the commitment we make to the high schools is 5 o'clock. We'll get your activity buses there at 5 o'clock. And then really when they leave, that compound is up to the principal. Up to some activities go till 5:30. Other activities, based on the sporting season, might leave at 5:15, 5 o'clock, right then and there. When the bus shows up, put the kids on and they go. So yeah, those activities are there.
You were
Oh,
finished?
yeah, I'm done.
Okay. I am going back to the bus stop review form and wondering if there is a place for parents to send suggestions on other safety concerns that they feel might need to be considered. I'm sure there are lots of parents that feel that there are other things that aren't included on that review form that are high safety concerns to be considered when they're requesting a bus stop change.
Oh, absolutely.
So where is it that
Absolutely.
we could send those?
Yeah. Well, and most of those suggestions from the parents actually come from that bus stop change request that they send in. A lot of times they'll say, hey, I want to move it because there's a pond there and there are 2 big gators. And yes, that's happened. I got out there and I'm thinking, geez, the nice big ones right here. So things change. Water retention ponds, construction, now there's new homes you can't see. So that happens all the time. But yes, we can fix something. I mean, that would be an easy fix there, just for suggestions. And as far as the form goes, yeah, we can definitely look at adding stuff to it.
Oh, oh my God. Ma'am, didn't I tell you your quota was used up?
I can just hold on to the microphone for the rest of the meeting. I have a question about charter schools, because not all bus stop issues affect the public schools. You guys don't handle any issues regarding charter school buses, correct? Those have to be addressed with the actual charter school.
Correct. I never want to see an issue with a bus, but I got to tell you, I do smile when it's an A&S bus. Because they'll start giving us numbers, and I'm thinking, oh, that's not our bus. Thank goodness. But no, we don't do anything with the charter school or the A&S transportation. Yep.
Last chance, anybody else with a question for Mr. Lloyd? Or his wonderful district zone, I forgot their exact title, the 3 wonderful gentlemen in the back there. They haven't had any questions. Anybody have a question for one of the zone gentlemen that are specific to them so they don't get off scot-free? Look at that. See, look at that. Either that or you guys got to buy them a beer after the meeting.
Yeah. Now they're all trying to figure out what zone this is going to be.
Nope, not a question. It's more of a suggestion.
Okay.
I don't know if any of the information about bus changes actually gets into the hands of parents as in forms of like a handout at the beginning of the school year, but perhaps something like an infographic kind of explaining like the roadmap of how to do a bus change may be useful for parents if it's sent home with the students at the beginning of the year.
Okay, and how about, and we thought about that, like I said, Scott and I, we've already made some changes. And maybe having our transportation webpage straight from the district, maybe making that more user-friendly. Because some of the changes, we call them bus routes, talking to Scott and the board, maybe bus stops would have been more informative. We did move some things around, so I think if you go on it now, it might be user-friendly. But yeah, absolutely. Sending something out. Again, it all goes back to educating the community, educating the parents, educating the schools, transportation department. It all comes back to communications.
All right, and we're going to wrap up here. I got one more, and then I'll have a just quick closing comment, and we will wrap up.
So very quickly and briefly, I think just going back to the suggestion Scott had made earlier, and it's something that was on my mind as well, but I think it really would truly benefit every student and every parent if at open house there's a handout with where to find information, even if it's not giving them the information directly. Here's where you can find information about this, and this was a quick bullet point kind of brochure for one sheet that the parents can get. I think that would be truly beneficial to everybody involved.
Consider that done. That's easy.
So here's a question. How many of you that are not school principals, right, before this meeting understood the process of how you would go about trying to get a bus stop change or getting information about your child's bus stop? How many of you really understood how that process worked? About half of us. So there's, just sort of what we were sharing, the executive board shared when we had this presentation, that we thought we'd get a lot of questions about that every year. Some of us have been on DAC for a while, and it seems that, this is good. So I'm glad that people are sharing the ideas about the infographic, because they have enough to do at the beginning of the year. And if they're getting lots of questions just because people don't know how to, it's just we can do better, right? I think we're all seeing that that's a pain point for them and us. So the better we can communicate, the less phone calls and questions they have, and the more time everybody has to do the actual work, if you will, instead of just explaining how it works. So I want to say thank you very much, Mr. Lloyd, for coming out.
No problem.
Thanks to the great folks in the back. You guys, big contributions tonight. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you. No, I'm teasing. We appreciate you being here. Normally we do split into 3 separate sessions, and your participation would have been much more direct at that time, but we had fewer folks, so we did it all together. Thank you, Mr. Lloyd, for being the star of our show tonight. And our next meeting is oh, geez Louise. Thank you, everybody, very much. Our next meeting will be next year. Perhaps we'll get some legislative relief between now and then, again, regardless of COVID. I'm still pushing, and our board is pushing for us to be able to do virtual meetings and have those count, just to make it easier for everybody to participate. So I really thank everybody for coming out. Thank you much for your participation. Have a great summer, and we'll see some of you again next year, I hope. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Eric. Yes, very good seeing you.